What is up, my peeps? Welcome back to That's Right, I Said It. I am now 23 days off of the MIT 45's. Down to, as of last night, about 7.5 grams of the kratom powder. Disappointing to report, my sleep was not that great last night. I've had so many people, comment, and it has become so obvious to me, and I knew it would be. I kind of live in my own little circle, I don't socialize a lot. I hang out with my wife and my son at home, and every once in a while I'll see my my close inner circle of family, my brother, mom, dad, my nephews, those people. But for the most part, I kind of keep to myself. So I don't want to say I'm surprised by the outpouring of interest in kratom and MIT 45, that sort of thing. I wouldn't say I'm surprised, but I guess I was a little naive to how much of an outpouring I would get regarding this subject. I had a feeling, but until you start seeing the views come in, and then the commenters, people telling me their stories regarding, kratom and then other things, you just never can really get an appropriate grasp on how many people out there that are struggling with this. And again, I just want to say right out of the gate, I am not a person who is saying that kratom should be banned and we should not be allowed to take kratom, stuff like that. As I learn more about it and have, my own other extended experiences with kratom, my mindset and my school of thought on it, it kind of shifts, daily based on what I learn and based on what I experience. And a lot of where I'm at right now is, the extracts, the adulterated versions where a third party has taken natural kratom and mixed it with these other compounds of which we know very little about, might I add. And mix it with certain compounds and other potentiators that cause this kratom shot to be so highly addictive to people, and who knows what other kind of dangers it can represent as well. Now I know, even with the kratom capsules and things like that, you never know for sure. Without, I don't even know how much you really know, even if our Food Drug Administration was watching it and was controlling it. How much would you really know about the process by which it ends up on the shelf and in the hands of consumers? But being that at this point it is a non-scheduled, considered a dietary supplement, and there's a whole nother discussion about that. The pharmacology of kratom actually classifies it as a food, not a drug, or not a dietary supplement, but it's actually a food. So as I've been learning through this process, I'm learning more and more and more myself. And I think kind of where I'm at right now is, there needs to be some regulation surrounding it. But outside of that, try to keep it, do your research, try to keep it as much of natural kratom leaves. Like, I've heard people talking about the freeze-dried kratom leaves and stuff like that. I haven't gone that route yet myself, but I plan on looking into that, and I think that that's something that people should really look into, because at least that this is something that's coming right out of the earth. Let's just put it this way: nature got it right. Okay, it's just like when we had the stint with synthesized, what do you call it, spice, like weed back in the day. Oh my God, man, I've got some stories about that I'll share in subsequent videos. At first this was marketed as like synthesized weed, and I'm telling you, I had a couple of experiences on that spice, like the K2 and all this other stuff. I had some experiences on that I would literally rank as an outer body experience. Literally an outer body experience, to where I was not aware of my immediate surroundings and what was going on surround me. I was completely in another dimension. And I mean that quite literally, was in another dimension. A few of the times that I took a nice strong hit of some of that spice, and they marketed this as legal weed. Looking back on that now, bro, weed, the kind of weed that grows out of the earth that God created, would never do that to you. Never do that to you. Nature gets it right. Nature gets the amounts of metrogenine that's in the compound and the alkaloid that actually gives you the euphoria in kratom. Nature has gotten that right. And there are a lot of health benefits that can be associated with kratom. And so I say, in my opinion, I think the best thing that we all can do is try to do our research and get the most natural form possible of that. And always start slow. And be careful about mixing it with a bunch of other drugs. If you're a person who takes a ton of other medications and stuff like that, because I've learned in what I have studied that is a problem as well, because you don't know what the contraindications are. And I'm no medical professional, but certain drugs and certain prescriptions that might be prescribed by a doctor can clash with something like kratom, and it can cause a lot of unwanted effects that the public is just not ready for. So if you're a person who takes a lot of other medications and you're considering trying kratom, talk to your doctor about that, and start slow. Don't just go your first day and take 30 grams of kratom when you're also on 6, 7, 8 other medications. It's just not a good move. It's not a smart move. So just try to be methodical and careful with making sure that you're taking kratom that is unadulterated and has not been altered in some way by a third party, like the extracts, and get the natural stuff, and then start slow with it so you can understand what the effects are as you go along. I think that's the best piece of advice I can give on that. Because as of right now, I'm not going to go on this campaign to tell people don't take kratom, because there's people out there that get a lot of benefit from it. And there's also people out there that don't abuse it. I took 7.5 grams of kratom yesterday. That's not very much. And my sleep told the story last night, because I was having some, I wouldn't call them withdrawals, but I was not able to sleep soundly. Let's just put it that way. And I want to compound that by saying I'm an extremist sort of person. I'm a person that can go from 100 to 0 just like that. And a lot of times I want to do that. So I've been taking kind of a more aggressive approach. Typically when you're tapering, you want to put 2 or 3 days in between adjusting down your dosage, so that you can give your body and your system time to readjust to the lesser amount that you're bringing on board. And I've not really been doing that. This week specifically, starting Monday, literally every day, Monday and Tuesday night both, I knocked down my intake by about 1.5 grams each time. You're not really supposed to do that. You're supposed to wait 3-4 days in between and then knock it down by 0.5 gram, not 1 gram, 1.5 grams like I've been doing every day. So I've obviously been going a lot more aggressive with it, and that's just the kind of extremist person that I am. I didn't sleep very well last night, and now after I get off work at 5 o'clock today, I have kickboxing tonight. It's really easy to want to say, I'm not going to go to kickboxing tonight. I didn't sleep well. I've had a rough couple of days. Let me evade on my responsibilities. But I'm the type of person that feels like you kind of have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable in this world. And that helps you be stronger in every avenue of your life. And I will say this too. If you're tapering off of kratom, one of the mistakes that I consistently make is I'll, take my last dosage of the day of kratom pretty early in the evening, anywhere from 5:30, between 5:30 and 6:45 in the evening, somewhere around that time, I'm taking my last dose of kratom. And what happens is, I'm waking up, I'm falling asleep just fine, but then I'm waking up at 12, 1, 2 in the morning. The kratom's left my system has already cycled through it, and then I'm just awake. I'm not really experiencing a lot of withdrawals per se, but I'm just awake, and I can't stay asleep. And that's probably because I should be waiting a little bit longer, and taking that last dose a little bit later in the evenings. So I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to do that every night. I might just end up dealing with, the discomfort of not necessarily sleeping that well. But if you're a person who your sleep is important to you, and you want to try to make sure that you're getting your sleep throughout the night as you're tapering, start cutting your doses down, your daytime doses. Cut those down first. Start chopping those down. Take one less capsule or one less gram or whatever every few days, but take that off of your daytime doses first, and then let your nighttime doses be the last thing that you start to chop down. And then you chop those down a little more slowly. Take your last dose later at night, 8, 9 o'clock if you can do that, right before you go to bed. And that's going to keep some of the kratom in your system throughout the night as you're sleeping, and it might kind of help you sleep through the night, which is something I've been struggling with. So I'm actually telling myself that as I'm telling you guys that. Rare is real 420, my dude. I'm really proud of you. This guy and I have a lot in common in terms of our history with MITs, kratom. This guy's been dealing with it for a while. He's actually come off of them, and he's, only taken around 10 to 12 grams of kratom at this point. And he was talking about coming off of it altogether. I don't know if that would be a permanent decision by you, my guy. I mean, that's between you and God, or you and just whatever decision that you need to make that fits best for your life. But I support it, man. Keep the comments coming. I'm pulling for you. I'm proud of you, getting yourself out of that locked in state with something like that MIT 45. That's really going to benefit you. It's really going to benefit you. And I appreciate your continued support for the channel as well. And I just want to shout him out. He's one of the first guys that subscribed to my channel, and he's coming back and he's watching the videos. So I'm really appreciative of that. What else? So I want to share a story about when I was younger. This is probably early 30s. And I was already experiencing an addiction to opiates. Anything, whether it was Vicodin. I used to take this medication called Darvocet that my parents would get. I think they don't make Darvocet anymore, but it was a very mild opiate. Anything like that, Percocet, anything I could get my hands on, I would take it. Well, the story I'm about to tell is partially malpractice, or medical malpractice, but it also is probably going to be an illustration of a drug addict and the extremist mindset of a drug addict, meaning me. So I went to this doctor. Okay, let me back up. So when I was born 46 years ago, I was born with a hernia, with what is called a hydrocele hernia. At some point that in utero, I was straining or whatever, and I actually had a small hernia. So that had to be repaired. And I got that repaired when I was maybe 2-3 years old. That I actually got surgery on that and had it repaired. Let me say, I don't even remember this. I was a toddler when I had this surgery. But, surgery back during those days was pretty invasive. There was no laparoscopic, I'm going to make a little incision, in your belly, and then I'm going to take a little camera that's about the size of a pinhead and go in there, and then I'm going to take some little snips. There was none of that. Back then, they slice you open, and they fillet you open, and they go in there and they do whatever. So This was in 1979, 78, 79 when I had this surgery. So um, it's something that I had some like acute pain with it as I was growing up, and there were times where I would just all of a sudden start having like a severe pain in that area where that scar was. And it only happened maybe 2 or 3 times throughout my life that I can remember, but it was horrible, like debilitating pain, literally where I would be on the floor curled up in a ball. And it was right there under where the scar was, where I had this hernia surgery. Well, when I got to be, it was either around maybe 27 or 28, something like that. I was married to my first wife, had been married for a couple of years. I started having some discomfort in that area. And when I say months passed and this was becoming a chronic pain issue, it sent me down a horrible, it was one of the most horrible times in my life that I can recall. I was depressed. I was going to doctor after doctor after doctor. They were looking at me, telling me there was nothing was wrong. They did some scans on me. They weren't seeing anything. There was nothing out of the ordinary other than the fact that I had some scar tissue in there from where, from where that I had that done. So eventually, I get what's called a groin exploration surgery done, because I'm telling them, I was like, look, I've been in pain for 8 months straight. There's something, and so they finally decided to send the surgeon in to look and see if they could find out what's going on. So they did that, and there was a nerve. Sure enough, there was a nerve that was entrapped in some of the scar tissue in there. So he ended up fixing that. By this point, I had already gotten addicted to pain medications, because I was under the care of a pain management clinic. I had been given pain medications for a good, probably 5 to 7 months. Out of that time, I was being given pain medications, so I was already addicted, and I'm a person who I had that seed of addiction in me already anyway, so them giving me a prescription was no good. So got the surgery done. I'm gonna try to make this short, because I'm gonna try to make this short the best I can. I'm a long-winded person, so sorry about that. So I get this surgery done. After I heal up from the surgery, maybe a month and a half passes, the pain started to subside, and the pain actually went away. And I was thinking to myself, wow, this is great. This is great. But I had a problem. If the pain goes away, then you can't take pain medication anymore. I wanted to still take pain medication. I was completely addicted to pain medication. So they took me off of the pain medication because they didn't want me to be on it long term. And I was a young man, by this time. I wasn't even 30 years old yet. So they took me off the pain medication and were trying some other things, gabapentin and like different things like that to help with the pain. I didn't want gabapentin. I wanted some painkillers because I was addicted to painkillers. So I found this doctor up in a local town. I still remember his name, but I'm not going to say his name. He was a little short Asian man who barely spoke English. And I went and I, showed him the scar, told him I'd had 2 surgeries in that area, and I just had a lot of pain, and that the doctors weren't necessarily finding anything wrong, but that I experienced pain in this all the time. Now, let me back up and say, remember, I actually wasn't really experiencing pain anymore. I mean, I've always been able to tell that, that I've had some work done there, but I would not classify it as pain at all, because this doctor this surgeon who did the exploration surgery actually went in, he actually snipped the nerve in there that, sends physical sensation to that specific area where that scar is. So I shouldn't be feeling any pain unless it's like a phantom pain sort of thing. And but this doctor did not check anything about my background, and I remember him asking me what you like me to do in a Oriental Asian accent. Asked me what you like me to do. I'm like, I tried not to sound like a drug addict. Okay, well, I want you to give me some 10 milligram Percocets, and I want to get 120 of those, and I want you to, whatever. So, said something to the effect of, I need something for the pain. I try to take like a leave. I knew what to say. As an addict, you know what to say. I've tried taking a leave. They've tried giving me 800 milligram ibuprofen, stuff like that. They've tried muscle relaxers. Just nothing works. I need something that's going to take care of the pain. So this guy writes me a prescription for 10 milligram Vicodin, the strong ones, 10 milligram Vicodin. Not good for an addict. Take those for a few months. Go back. Tell him that the 10 milligram Vicodins aren't working. He turns around and writes me for 120 a month, 7.5 milligram Percocets. Okay? Take those for 4 or 5 months. I'm guessing. This has been so long, I don't remember exactly the time stamps on all of this, but took that dosage for a while, went back to him, said the same thing again, that the pain is starting to break through. The 7.5 perks aren't working anymore. So ultimately, I capped out at this doctor who had not done test number 1 on me. No MRIs, no ultrasounds, no kind of tests to see what I really had going on in that area. And I had this doctor who was not part of a pain clinic writing me a prescription for 120 10 milligram Percocets a month to an addict. For an addict. Somebody who couldn't wait to take their next dose. And that was my undoing. That's where things really started to go south for me. Obviously, I was abusing them, so I was running out of these things sometimes after a week and a half, 2 weeks of having them. And then for the next 2 weeks, I'm either going through withdrawals or trying to figure out how to score some more pills. So I was, doctor hopping and, stealing them from my parents. I've talked about on my previous videos where my parents had some medications, some opiate-like medications. And so I was trying to figure out another way to get them. So the way that I finally ended up coming off of these, and this goes back to the extremist personality, which I wrote that down so I will remember to talk to you guys about it. I prayed, and I knew that they were killing me. And there were nights, you know how opiates, especially strong opiates, suppress your breathing? There were nights where I was laying in bed and my breath was so shallow that I literally had the fear that if I went to sleep, I was just going to stop breathing. Literally. That's how shallow my breath was. I'm talking... that's how my breath sounds will be. I don't know if you guys could hear that. Maybe you could hear that. But my breath sounds really shallow. To the point I was concerned I would literally just stop breathing and die in my sleep. And I prayed to God, I have to do something. I have to do something. I can't do this anymore. And what I actually did was, when I was at work that following week, I typed up a letter, a very well-worded, formal letter, and I typed it to this doctor's office. Okay, wait, let me back up. The doctor who had originally wrote me for this prescription went somewhere else, and he was not at this office anymore. So there was this female doctor who had taken over that case. And she didn't take me off of the medication. She continued the medication, the regimen that he had me on. And I guess she was going to indefinitely do that. She just assumed that he had done his due diligence or whatever. I don't know how all that works, but there's probably some neglect on her part too. But point being, she continued me on those medications, and I was seeing her at that point, not the original Asian doctor. And wrote a letter addressed to her and told her that I had been abusing the medications and that I need not to be prescribed any more medication. And that was an extreme thing to do for somebody who was extremely addicted. And I also knew what kind of withdrawals that I was in for. But you know what? I knew that God was going to take care of me. I knew that God was going to see me through it. And, what I ended up doing during that time was I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. That's the only time in my life where I went to an outpatient drug treatment facility and was like, here's what happened, and here's where I'm at, and I need some help. And that's the only time in my life that I've been put on Suboxone and, you know, taken drug treatment therapy and gone to meetings. And that's the only time in my life that I've done that, was coming off of that Percocet. But I had to do that. And if I hadn't done that, and if God hadn't put his hand on me during that time of my life and sat me down at that computer and made me write that letter to that doctor's office, telling them that I was abusing those medications that they had been prescribing to me for a year, 2 years, whatever it was, then I may not be sitting here right now talking to you guys. And that's real talk. That's real talk. But God's out there, guys. You know, not to get religious on you, but there are times where he will pluck you right out of the darkness, right before you go into that abyss that will end your life. That's when he steps in, even through all the drug-filled haze, he was able to get through to me at that point in my life. And that was necessary. Or I wouldn't be the man I am today. I wouldn't be the successful person that I am today. I wouldn't be the father that I am today. This is before I had my son, by the way. I wouldn't be the husband that I am today, and I wouldn't live the enriched life that I live today. So 7 grams of kratom powder per day, and still edging down sounds pretty good compared to what I've been through in my past. First time I ever told that story. Wow, that resonates when I say it out loud. Leave a comment. I love hearing your guys' comments, telling me what you've been through. I've had guys say that they've been clean off. One guy told me he's been clean off of H for 27 years. Man, that's amazing. That's amazing. And a lot of other guys that told me a little bit about their story, and I love hearing it. We can support each other through this. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next episode. All right, peace.